Good morning, YouTube. This is K.Marie. It's about 6:30 in the morning, and I am absolutely exhausted, but I have to get up. I don't want to get up because I spent most of this late evening from, I say, 3 in the morning to 5:30 in the morning, helping a couple of friends out who were stranded in their car halfway to Alabama. So no one had insurance, no one had AAA. No one had anything. No one had anybody else they could call except me. And they just happened to reach me because I forgot to turn my phone off. Normally I turn my phone off at night so that I don't get indications and from my phone and random calls like I got this morning. So I got up. I brought my dog with me because whenever I leave out late at night, you never know what you might run into. So I packed up my dog and we headed off towards Alabama. And about halfway there, I saw my friends on the side of the road looking cold and scared. The hood of their car was up and they had their flashers on. And they said that several men had passed by to offer assistance, but that they were too afraid to receive the assistance and wave the men on. And were just patiently waiting for me to show up. So I showed up with some blankets and some sweatshirt tops and socks and slip-on shoes. And I had also stopped at the QT to get some coffee because I could tell from when they were talking, they were just kind of tired and slightly hungover and cold. So bear with me because I'm trying to get my thoughts together here. I am going to make a really important point. Just kind of follow me with this story. So when I walked up to the car, I asked them what was wrong. And they said, oh, we just don't know. We have all these things going on with their car. They said the tire is flat, and apparently they had been riding on a flat tire for a moment. And then they said something happened with the car. And under the hood. I said, well, what happened with the car under the hood? And they said, we just don't know. Something's going on. So they were just a mess. And I said, and I asked them, I said, does anybody have AAA or do you have insurance? So the car was an older model car, and my friend had only liability on the car, and she said she didn't want to pay for AAA. And I said, well, you're the main person who needs AAA when you have an older model car and you don't have full comprehensive coverage. So I went to the front of the car and looked at it, and I asked her to start the engine, and it wouldn't start. I said, okay, I think I know what's going on here. And so I told her to let me know what's going on with your tire. Do you have a spare? She said, yeah, it's a spare somewhere. It's attached to the back, and we don't know how to get it. And I said, what are you talking about? You don't know how to get it. So I went to the back of the car, and it was one of those, actually an SUV, an older model SUV. And in this SUV, the tire, the spare, was beneath the car, not in the trunk. It was beneath the car, and you had to have a special lock to unlock it, to drop the tire from under the car and then pull it out. I said, do you have your jack. I think your car jack is the tool that you need to unlock this tire. She said, oh, what is that? So I knew at that point that I wasn't going to get any more help from one of my friends was asleep in the car and at my car with the heat on, and she was just, and the one I was talking to was just not any good. I said, just go in my car and go to sleep and I'll figure this out. So I went in my car and I pulled my jack out, and I was hoping and praying that my jack would fit their car, and it did. So I was able to put, I don't know what it's called, kind of forgive me here, but it's like a long L-shaped part. I stuck it in and turned it like a lock. I stuck it in a hole or a slot, and I turned it to the right. I had to kind of push my weight against it, and then the tire dropped. And I was able to kind of haul the tire from under the truck, and then I got my jack, my car jack, and I jacked up the car near the tire, which was the driver's side. I went to my car again and got some orange cones and put orange cones out so I didn't get hit, since I didn't have any friends who were able to watch the cars because they were asleep in my car. And then I took the nuts and the bolts off, and the wheel lock off, and then I took each one of the bolts off and changed the tire. And then hauled the other tire back into the car and all that stuff. Then I went back to my SUV and I pulled out this battery charger that my dad bought for me for a Christmas gift. He bought me a battery charger because he saw my old school cables, and he said, Kenya, no one uses cables anymore. So I pulled out my dad, the gift my dad purchased for me, and I plugged it into the car and started their car and hooked up the cables and started charging it. Got the car going. And that was it. But my friends were too busy sleeping. I had the car running, and I was going to follow them back to their home. And I was not going to let them leave the car there. So I said, look, let's need one of you to wake up and drive this car on. I could not get them to wake up. Could not get them to wake up. And I knew if we left his car out here, it wouldn't be there when we got back. So I said, okay, should I teach them a lesson and let's just drive off and let me take them home and let the car stay here, and if it's there when we get back, it's there or it's not? Or should I be the responsible one and find a way to get this car back home? Because neither one of them were any good at this point. They were snoring and counting sheep. So I pulled out my phone and I called up one of my friends who owed me a favor, one of my male friends. I couldn't call my baby because he was out of town at the funeral. That was the first person I wanted to call. But I called up one of my other friends and I said, look, I need your help. And I explained the situation to him. After much cursing, he and his girlfriend came out to the destination. His girlfriend, who was also a friend of mine, was like, you're not going out there by yourself. What's going on? What's wrong with Kenya? And so once she saw the situation, she realized that, yeah, you need some help. So his girlfriend drove their car. I drove my friend's car. He drove my car with my two friends in it, and we got them home. Had a nice little caravan. And I told my friend and his wife, I owe you all so much. I owe you breakfast, lunch, something. He said, oh, you owe us a dinner at Gordon Biersch or something. So anyway, that was that. Alright, so I drove home. My poor dog is lying at the foot of my bed. He's exhausted because I pulled him out of his sleep. I'm exhausted, but I have to get up now and get to the gym because we have swim practice today, so I can't sleep in. I just want to talk about that scenario. I know that was a long story, but there's something in that I want to talk about. And that's this idea of being dependent and codependent, and where you draw those lines. So, what would my friends have done if I weren't there? What would have happened? Right? I guess they would have just sat there all night and slept until a police officer drove by. Maybe they would have walked to the nearest gas station. I don't know. But neither one of my friends had anybody else to call. And I thought that was really interesting, because when they called me the first time on my phone, actually they called a couple of times. The first time I was like, I'm not answering that phone. And the second time I answered, because it seemed so insistent, they said, we don't have anybody else to call. And one of my friends, is estranged from her family and broke up with her boyfriend, so she didn't have anybody to call. And she said she didn't have friends like that she thought would show up. And the other friends, doesn't have any parents. She just has, lots of girlfriends, and, the occasional boyfriend that she might have. But she said she didn't think there was anybody that she could call. She said she knew she could call me and depend on me to show up and help her. She said, I just knew. And she said, I also knew you would know what to do. And I thought about that. I thought about, where did that come from? Where did that idea come from that I was the only one who could help? And I could help, and I'm actually kind of surprised at myself that I was able to do all of those things. There was a time in my life I would not have been able to drop a tire from someone else's car and place it on the car and start the engine up. I would not have been able to do any of those things. And I felt premature for the first time in a long time. I said, oh, I did something really adult-like. But what I want to talk about is the dependency that my two friends have on hoping that things work out. Hoping that there's somebody that can come along and rescue you. Hoping. And how dangerous that is for us to live our lives like that. To live in such a fragile state. Because this is not the first time this month, or I was saying in the last 30 days, that I've had some friends call me and ask for help. Another friend called me up and asked me would I loan her money to help pay a gas bill. And then another friend called me up and asked me would I help with a cable bill, which I was pretty offended over. And in one situation I said yes. The other situation I said I can give you part of what you're asking for. And they got offended and they said don't worry about it, which I'll talk about in another video. But in all these situations, I see a fragility. I see a fragility in the way my friends, some of my friends, not all of them, some of my friends are living their lives. And I realize that there's always a time when people need each other and you have to be there. And there's also a time when you have to figure out how to make things work and live your life in such a way that no matter what happens, you have a cushion, be it financial, be it a personal resource, a backup plan, something when I extrapolate this to the the greater community, I realize how many vulnerable and fragile people we have walking around here, male and female. There was a time I had a male friend, actually, very close male friend, who had lost his job and lost his car, had to go live with his parents in a different part of the state, and then asked me if he could come stay with me to get on his feet, because his best chance to get on his feet was here in Atlanta. And I said yes. I helped him out. I let him stay with me. He got on his feet and didn't have to pay any bills. He didn't have any money. Just had my couch and my encouragement. He found a job in his field. Didn't have a car. Couldn't take MARTA because it was off the MARTA line. I gave him a loan to get a modest car. He paid the loan back. Now my friend, 4 years later, is doing outstandingly well. Actually is making more money than me from his job and his business that he formed later, and has lots of opportunities. So I don't quite know where I'm going with this. Maybe I'm just tired and I just want to talk. Or maybe the lessons in this are, we have to be there for each other, and being there for each other, also be examples and support systems for when that person that you're there for eventually gets on their feet. Maybe that's what this lesson is. I don't know yet. All I know is I have to get up out of this bed, put my swimsuit on, and go to swim practice. I hope you got something out of this. It might be just, it may make no sense, but I felt like talking. Okay, talk to you soon. Good night and good morning.